a video of me faffing around with something, as always. So, to do a syrup sponge, there's two ways of doing it. The way I do it, because I want to portion things up, is I bake the cake, portion the cake, pour some syrup into the bottom of the paper, put the cake back onto the paper, and then the syrup soaks into the cake, and then you reheat the cake and you serve it, and you've got nice sized portions without the syrup kind of wanting to mush the cake up into little bits. But I was kind of thinking, what happens is the syrup kind of comes up to about halfway up the cake. So I was kind of thinking, well, maybe if we soak the cake, the bottom half of the cake, and allow that to completely saturate, and then turn the cake over once the cake had the bottom half had been completely saturated with syrup, would that syrup then saturate into the top of the cake, because that's now on the bottom, and would it like be evenly dispersed kind of like all the way through, and what would that be like? Would that be something that was delicious? Would that be something that was that it would the syrup would crystallize? What would kind of happen? Would the syrup kind of, if we put it on a rack, would like all the excess syrup drain out of it eventually, but we still be left with this kind of syrup infused kind of like cake? I'm just kind of quite curious. So if I'm curious, let's have a go. So this is I was baking fruitcakes. So this is a normal sponge, but made with, it's got a few bits of spice in, and it's got some orange and lemon rind in it, or zest, and it's made with a dark brown sugar rather than a caster sugar. So it's a little bit darker than usual. And then, so that can just be out of the way for a minute. So that's that. It's just cake. And then so paper back in the cake tin, and then melted syrup in bottom. Hang on, no, I need what I do need is, hang on, this will do a better job. So I'll press the paper back into the cake tin using another cake tin on top, and then it's completely pressed down. So that's okay, yeah, that's better. So then we'll just pour syrup in. It's just some syrup that I've got knocking about. So I think it's got some, I think it's a bit of an orange syrup, and it's some syrup from some other cakes that I was soaking. So it's fine. I don't know what it'll be. It's probably like 2/3 sugar, 1/3 liquid. So if it was a kilo of sugar, it'd be 500 grams worth of liquid. So we'll just put that in there. It'll float for the moment, and then as the syrup soaks into the cake, it'll drop down, and then it'll get to a level. So we'll leave that in there in a container in the fridge. In an airtight. No, I'll just put some cling film on top. We'll see. So we'll leave that for a couple of days, or 24 hours. No, I'm working all day tomorrow. I've got 2 functions on. So we'll cover it, leave it, and then we're back when it's completely saturated, and then we'll turn it over, and we'll kind of see what happens, just out of interest. So this has had a couple of days for the syrup to soak into it. So let's just have a look at it and see what it looks like. If it wants to come out of there, oh, well, that's okay. So we should be able to see a line at the side of the cake. Oh, there we go. So we can see that all that at the bottom has saturated, and it's worked its way up the cake. So what I want to do now is I want to turn it over upside down, so the syrup soaks into the top of the cake. So how am I going to do that? I think what we'll do is we'll wrap it up in a bit of cling film plastic wrap, which I'm trying to put down on. I'm going to use that a lot less than I used to. So if we do it that way, I think that'll be better. That way. and that'll have created a, hopefully, created like a bucket over it that way, and then we can turn it over that way, put it on something flat in the fridge, and the syrup will seep down, saturate it all, and then because we've wrapped it in cling film, it won't kind of it won't leak out, and if there is any that pools in the bottom, it should soak in. So we'll put it on a tray which is a bit oversized, but we'll give it a couple of days and we'll see what it's like. So it's been upside down for a couple of days, and it looks like the syrup's starting to come all the way through. Let's have a look at it. Bit of a waste of cling film. But I think I'm going to take the cling film off now anyway. Can't cycle it, unfortunately. So we have got the syrup kind of coming through, haven't we? Let's look at the side. What would I rather make a mess of? No, we'll make a mess of that. That'll be fine. Now let's just... Oh, it looks like it's completely kind of saturated. So let's put it upside down on something. Maybe the cling film was stopping from the syrup from wanting to kind of come out. Let's tell you what we'll do. If it will fit on there. No, would you? No, that's just pretty much up. Let's just turn it upside down on there, like that. And the paper like that. So then if any syrup wants to kind of get out, it can do. Then let's put that over there just to give it a bit of... No, I don't think it would really matter, would it? But anyway, let's just leave that on there. I was kind of thinking protect it from drying out, but let's just leave that on there. And then we'll put it back in the fridge. Probably better out the fridge, because obviously that's it becomes a lot thicker when it's cold, does the syrup. But let's give it another couple of days and see what syrup kind of soaks out of it, and then we'll have a cut into it. I think that's what we'll do. Yes. So it's had another couple of days. So let's have a look at it. I mean, it looks like it's completely saturated all the way through. You can see. You can see. There's no line to suggest that the syrup hasn't gone all the way through. What we're going to do? We're going to cut it in half. No, let's cut it there, and then we can have a look. Oh no, it's still got... There's that little bit there that hasn't soaked all the way through, so that'd be down to... It's got around the outside. It's delicious. Oh, that's good. That's so good. It's delicious. Well, I'll lift it up. I'm going to have to wash my hands afterwards. So, it's just that bit there that hasn't kind of soaked up the syrup. So if it was warm, it would do. But maybe that's maybe that's maybe that for another day, maybe, but it's delicious. It's ridiculously good. It's got that rum bar type of feel to it. It's delicious. That's so good. But it was just a bit of an experiment. To see what would happen. The only danger with heating it is that, you know, it's kind of, to cool things down and heat things back up, it gets a bit, you really shouldn't be doing that type of thing. But it's interesting. It's interesting. It's maybe something that I want to develop for the future when I'm doing a steam sponge, like a treacle sponge like that. And I always soak it in the bottom and I turn it upside down so it's like that, so the top's on the bottom, so the top is saturated with the syrup, and then you kind of, it's, you know, I pre-portioned it because it's difficult to cut a cake when it's like a sponge when it's warm. It tends to mush rather than cut through it. So I portion it before and then put it on the syrup and let the syrup soak in. So soaking it on the bottom and heating it, and then turn it. Maybe turning it over halfway through and letting that syrup soak into the bottom is a bit of a faff, but it's going to create a different type of sponge. But it's certainly worth thinking about. It's certainly an interesting idea. I don't. It would probably have soaked through it if it was a thinner syrup, but I quite like the idea of it being I suppose it's halfway in between a golden syrup treacle and a simple syrup, 1 part sugar, 1 part water type of consistency, which is nice, and it'd run all the way through and saturate everything, but then it'd run out and you wouldn't get that flavour of that delicious syrup. So not delicious at all. That's lovely. I'm not going to eat any more. I'm going to take it to work tomorrow and let people have it with their afternoon tea for free. So, but there you go. A little experiment. Something I had in my mind, and if I've got it in my mind, I need to kind of work my way through it and see what we can kind of do. And then, as you kind of work through things, you get other thoughts, see how things work, because how they work in your brain, not necessarily how they work in real life, and then you can change and adapt and see about getting what you want. But anyway, so I'm happy. Plans for the future.